And Israel really has told the entire earth by its very actions that its end is inevitable. That's what this war has proven. I mean, this war has proven numerous things, right? It's proven that America can be defeated. It's proven that America has a lot of weaknesses and limits. It's proven that Iran can defeat the United States. But it has also proven the inevitability of Israel's end. It reminds me of the Great Wall of China. You know, if you look at the Great Wall of China, right, this big Great Wall, China builds this big giant wall, super long wall, goes on for miles. They freaking buried people alive to build the damn wall. I mean, it's barbaric what the Chinese did. If you fell asleep on the job site building this wall, they buried you alive as punishment. I mean, it was barbaric, absolutely barbaric. And so they built this big Great Wall of China to block the Huns, the Turkic Huns, from entering China. And then eventually the Mongols want to invade China, and Genghis Khan begins to work to invade China. And the Mongolians tell Genghis Khan, Genghis Khan, how can we invade China when they have that miles-long wall? We can't penetrate that wall. We can't penetrate the Great Wall of China. And Genghis Khan looked at his men and he said, just walk around it. Eventually, the wall ends. Eventually, this wall will come to an end. The wall is not limitless. Find the end of the wall and then walk around it. And as obvious as that was, the Great Wall of China was so damn long that a lot of people just could not perceive that the wall actually had an end. And the Mongolians just marched for miles until they reached the end of that Great Wall. And they just walked around it and they invaded China. And China was devastated. So you look at Israel, decades of American brainwashing, Christian evangelical brainwashing has made us believe that Israel is undefeatable. You cannot defeat Israel. They praised and they hyped up that Iron Dome as if that Iron Dome had infinite ammo. And Iran just said, your missiles have limits. Your stockpiles will eventually come to an end, just like the Great Wall of China eventually has an end. So we're just going to keep firing our cheap-ass missiles at you. If you don't intercept our missiles, they're going to kill people. They're going to cause destruction. So it's best that you just keep intercepting them. We know that you're going to keep intercepting them. Your stockpiles are going to deplete. It's going to come to the point where you're going to have to determine which missile to intercept and which ones you're not going to intercept. And right now, Israel can't intercept 8 out of every 10 missiles launched by Iran at Israel. And so the Israelis are seeing all these Iranian missiles about to land on their territory, on their country, and they say, okay, we can only intercept 2 missiles at a time. So this missile is heading towards some Orthodox Jewish neighborhood. Who cares about those people? Let those people die. Who cares? This missile is going to hit a very financially wealthy area. It's going to hit some important financial sector of Israel. We have to save that, save the money. Okay, intercept that missile. It's like when a hospital is overflowing with people and they don't have enough hospital beds, and the doctors and the nurses have to choose who's going to be left to die and who's going to be given medical attention. I mean, it's come to that point. It's come to that point, and Israel has come to that point. So just as Genghis Khan proved that China is beatable, just as Genghis Khan demonstrated that the Great Wall is really not as unassailable as some people may have thought it was, the Iranians have proven that the Iron Dome has its limits, its gaps, and those limits and those gaps can be exploited and capitalized on. And Israel has exposed that its end is inevitable, because eventually Israel will come to an end. And eventually Israel will be facing a Turco-Iranian axis. Those very limits that we are seeing right now will still be there. And those limits will be exploited. And America will not be there to save Israel, because at that point, America will have been so exhausted by the American-Israeli alliance that America will say, sorry, politically, it's just pointless for me to defend Israel. Israel really is a hated country to the point where it doesn't look good for us on the global scene to be helping you. Because, as I've said many times, Turkey and Iran are deepening their security ties. And as Iran grows in prestige as being the only country standing up to both the Americans and the Israelis, and as Turkey grows in its own military capabilities, the Turco-Iranian axis is only going to get deeper, and it's only going to get stronger, and eventually Israel will have to face a Turco-Iranian axis. Is America going to go to war against Turkey to save Israel? The answer is an emphatic no. Is America going to be storming the beaches of the Dardanelles to save little old Israel? The answer is no. And so Israel will be facing its final boss, just like when you play Elden Ring, you eventually have to face the Elden Beast. And that's a pretty difficult boss to face, albeit I would say that the Godskin Apostle is by far the most difficult boss in Elden Ring in my experience. But Israel facing a Turco-Iranian axis would be like me playing Resident Evil 9 on insanity mode. It ain't going to happen. I'm not going to succeed unless I have infinite ammo. And Israel definitely does not have infinite ammo, as the entire world has witnessed. Israel doesn't have infinite ammo. Iran makes cheap-ass missiles. Fatah 3, Khamanshar missiles. Iran makes all these missiles very cheaply. They make plastic drones. They make a drone, $25,000. They make a missile, $35,000 missile. Israel makes a missile, $3 million. Well, how much are all these missiles going to cost? Israel, what's the total price for all these missiles? Let's say you got a set of some Arrow 3s and Arrow 2s. You got some David Sling stuff. How much is all this going to cost? Billions of dollars. And this war has been costing Israel literally at least $1 billion a day. And Iran is saying, we make a missile for $35,000. Make a drone, $25,000. And so we're just going to send in these swarms of missiles and drones. And yeah, you're going to take out a lot of our stuff. Yeah, you guys have more advanced missiles than we do. Sure. Yeah, you guys have very advanced missile interceptors. David Sling, Arrow 3, Arrow 2, Iron Dome. You guys have all this stuff. That's true. That's true. But we have more ammo than you do. And we're just going to keep firing cheap ammo at you. And yeah, you can take out that ammo. Yeah, you can intercept our missiles, but eventually you're going to run out of interceptors. Eventually you're going to run out of ammo. You guys don't have infinite ammo. And then what happens when you guys run out of so many of your interceptors that you can't even stop 80% of our missiles being launched at you? You guys are going to get pounded. And Israel is weakening right now. For decades, Article 5 had been treated as an ironclad guaranteed. Article 5! One for all and all for one. NATO will always defend itself no matter what. We are allies. We are allies. But look at what the article says here. It says, that this security guarantee was underpinned by American nuclear power. Yet in reality, that guarantee has always contained ambiguity. NATO's Article 5 has always been ambiguous. It has never been 100% an ironclad rule set in stone. Never. And you have people who have this conventional idea of NATO. They have this very conventional idea of NATO. They'll say, well, there's Article 5, and if Article 5 is triggered, then all of the NATO members have to defend the one member that is attacked. That's how NATO works. If you actually take the time to read Article 5, and I have, it makes it very clear that countries can choose how they defend the attacked party. So they can choose to just send weapons. They can choose to do some sort of support that does not involve combat. They don't have to participate in a war to defend a NATO member. They don't. And Article 5 makes it very clear that countries can defend an attacked member of NATO in accordance to their own government edicts. So in other words, let's say Poland is attacked unprovoked by, let's say, Russia. The Congress of America is going to get together and they're going to debate on whether or not they should save Poland. And you'll have a whole bunch of people in the American Congress arguing against going to war to defend Poland. And let's say that the majority of the American Congress votes against going to war. Well, sorry, America will not be going to war in that case, because NATO makes it very clear that countries can decide to go to war in accordance to their own governments. So that means the U.S. government, if a NATO member is attacked, the U.S. government can just pull back and say, we're not going to get involved. So NATO has never been reliable. Never. NATO has never been reliable. NATO has never been reliable as a security guarantee. Never. The same thing goes for America's treaty with Japan. America's treaty with Japan to defend Japan was never ironclad, because it even says in America's security agreement with Japan that if Japan needs to be defended, America can choose to defend Japan based on what the Congress decides. So that means that if Japan is attacked by, let's say, China, and the American Congress says, no, we're not going to go to war, America can pull back and say, sorry, Japan, you're on your own. And this is one of the reasons as to why the Japanese have been investing so much on their own military and working so much to boost up their own military capabilities. It's because they know that America is not 100% reliable. So really, the entire NATO scheme is just that. It's a scheme. It's a scam. It's a money laundering scheme to get countries to buy American weapons so that American defense contractors can make billions of dollars. This is why Lockheed Martin has been such a major supporter for NATO expansionism. This is why years ago, Bruce Jackson, who was a major high-ranking employee for Lockheed Martin, was lobbying for Poland to join NATO years ago. It's because Lockheed Martin knows that anytime you have a new member of NATO, that new NATO member is going to be buying American weapons, and that means that American weapons factories, American weapons corporations like Lockheed Martin, like Raytheon, like Boeing, are going to make bank. It's a big money laundering scheme. Even if you look at, let's say, the supposed aid that we give to Israel, we give supposedly $4 billion to Israel every year. Well, Israel just takes that money and uses it to buy American weapons. That's how Israel uses that aid. So it's just a big money laundering scheme in which the American taxpayer gives the money to Israel by force, and that money is then returned to the pockets of the big American defense corporations. It's a money laundering scheme. That's what it is. And the attacks by Iran on the Arab Gulf states has been really the clearest demonstration as to how much of a money laundering scam NATO is. They just showed, okay, even with all of these defense systems that America sells to these Arab countries still are not 100% safe. their security is still not 100% guaranteed. And if you look at Israel with its use of American missile interceptors and with its own missile interceptors, Israel has shown that there are many limits to this system of intercepting missiles. So it's not 100% reliable. It's not reliable. And America just forces these countries to buy its military technology to make money. And America tells Japan, oh, we're going to protect you. We're going to guarantee your security. And then one little war with Iran happens, and America goes to Japan and says, sorry, we have to pull some of our naval armada, and we have to diminish your security against China. And they did the same thing to the South Koreans. They pulled out their THAAD system from South Korea. And South Korea said, hey, what are you doing, America? That's the THAAD system that's supposed to protect us from North Korea. Sorry, we have to use it to protect Israel and the Gulf states. So America's security umbrella is a ruse. It's a scam just for certain people to get richer off of war. So it says here, today, that ambiguity is no longer theoretical. It's widely understood that the U.S. wouldn't lightly risk nuclear war in defense of every NATO member. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that America isn't going to risk a war of extermination to save Lithuania, to save Estonia, to save Latvia, to save Poland? America is not going to risk its very existence to save these European countries. It's not going to happen. So that's why these European countries are accelerating their own militarism. And it says here, the myth of the unconditional nuclear umbrella has been weakened, if not entirely dispelled. Germany, meanwhile, has begun discussing European nuclear deterrence. The Germans want their own nukes. And this is one of the things that this Iran war has contributed to. It has contributed to massive renewed interest to obtain nuclear weapons. And now we're talking about Germany getting nukes. I mean, we're worried about Iran getting nukes. Germany wants nukes, and Israel isn't complaining. I wonder why that is. Germany is the only country that came closest to exterminating the Jews, and the Germans are now talking about getting nuclear weapons. Why isn't Israel terrified of this? Oh, it's because Israel is a racist country. Germany is a white, civilized Western country, so they can have all the nukes they want. Iran is a Middle Eastern country, so we can't allow those people to have nukes. It's okay for Germany to get nukes, but not for Iran, even though Germany has a much bloodier history, and actually, Germany has a history of committing genocide, unlike Iran. Iran does not have a record of orchestrating genocides. Germany does. And this country that committed one of the greatest genocides in history, the Holocaust, wants nuclear weapons. Very few people are talking about this. Almost no one really is talking about this. This is not a major story. It should be. So you have nationalism increasing in Germany, and then you have this renewed interest in Germany to make Germany into a nuclear-armed country. Truly, the world is sinking into madness if we consider this to be okay. And Germany will get nukes. Rest assured, Germany will get nukes. And now the Russians are terrified of this revived German power. They are. The Russians are very worried about this revival in German power because they know once Germany revives as a power, Germany will become a nuclear-armed country. And then if Germany has a war with Russia, and if you have a third Russo-Germanic war, Russia will be facing a nuclear-armed Germany. And then at that point, it becomes an existential threat. At that point, it becomes a war for Russia's very existence. It says here, Poland, little old Poland, openly entertains ambitions of acquiring nuclear weapons. So Poland wants nukes, Germany wants nukes, Ukraine wants nukes, France wants more nukes. And why do they want nukes? Because they see the world around them. They see, man, Iran gets bombed like that. We need nukes. If we don't get nukes, we're going to become just as vulnerable as Iran. Can't have that. And they see Russia and Ukraine, and they see that really they're going to have a war with the Russians. They're planning to have a war with the Russians. So Russia is a nuclear-armed power. Russia has thousands of nuclear weapons. The Germans know this, obviously. The Poles know this. And so if they're going to have a war, if they're going to have a pan-European military force united against the Russians, they're also going to want to have nukes. And so this is what worries the Russians. So it says here that Poland openly entertains ambitions of acquiring nuclear weapons. Such developments are destabilizing, raising the specter of proliferation in a region long defined by non-nuclear norms. So the status quo that we have become so accustomed to is really ending. If not, it has already ended. But the status quo in Europe has been Europeans don't really need nukes unless you're French. The Germans don't need nukes. They have America to defend. That has been the status quo ever since 1945. The status quo has been Germany doesn't need a serious military. Germany doesn't need nukes because, well, it has America to protect it. Now we're seeing the Germans talking about getting nuclear weapons. We're seeing the Poles talking about acquiring nuclear bombs. The world is changing. And not in a good way. I'm not talking like one of these brain dead progressives. The world is changing. We're progressing so much. The world is changing, but we ain't progressing. We're becoming more warlike. We're becoming more fixated on killing each other. We're becoming more fixated on war and military expansionism and militarism. We are returning back to the militarism of olden days. You know how you read history and you read about, let's say, not Russian, but you read about Prussian militarism back in the 1800s. And you read about Otto von Bismarck and how the Prussians had a war against the French and against the Austrians, and the Prussians dominated Germany and really created the modern day state of Germany back in the 1870s. And you read about those days, and you read about World War I, and you read about how back in those days, Europeans saw glory in war. They glorified war. They said that every country should engage in war because it was glorious to go to war. It was glorious and exhilarating to be on the battlefield and to fight and kill your fellow man. And it was a part of a social Darwinian struggle for the domination of the superior race against the inferior race, and countries needed to demonstrate their superiority in this Darwinian struggle by proving their prowess and their martial dexterity on the battlefield, right? I mean, Europe was inundated with these sorts of ideas, very destructive ideas. And we will read about that and we will tell ourselves, those days, man, people were so barbaric back in the day. They were so barbaric, and they were barbaric. Absolutely, they were barbaric. But for decades, really, since the beginning of this post-World War, we have highly esteemed ourselves as being above the barbarism of the past, and we have highly esteemed ourselves as immune from indulging in the barbarity of the past. But what we are witnessing right now are the walls of the post-war order coming down, falling apart. And we are witnessing humanity pave a path not forward, but back to the barbarity of the past. And so the militarism of Europe is coming back, and the social Darwinian mentality that came with is also coming back. We've seen this with our own modern day industrialists, our own modern day eugenist industrialists. For example, we have Mark Andreessen, one of America's biggest industrialists, who recently stated that mankind must demonstrate his own ferociousness and his own martial prowess and his toughness by going beyond our own humanness. He said something to the likes of this very recently. And we have Elon Musk talking about transcending humanity through technology. This is about social Darwinism. He's talking about accelerating the process of human evolution by amalgamating humanity with machine, thus creating a new humanity, just as the Nazis believed in creating a new humanity. You have Peter Thiel talking about merging man with machine in order to create a new humanity and to create a new, more evolved human. Well, back in the day, back in the 20th century, they talked about this sort of stuff. They talked about how superior societies needed to become the natural selectors and use social or use biological engineering in order to create a new human. And in the 20th century, when you had this explosion in popularity for eugenics, you also had an explosion of popularity for militarism. And what do we see today? We see these big industrial giants, Mark Andreessen, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk. They're all talking about changing humanity, making humanity more evolved. That's eugenics. And this is all happening. This trend is transpiring in conjunction with this explosion in popularity for militarism. History truly is repeating itself.